Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard. This is Lap of the World, and these are a couple of parcels that I've been eagerly awaiting. So these are the packages that I've been waiting on back from NSX-Repair, where Brian has finished working his magic on my speaker amps and gauge cluster here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start with some kind of casual unboxing. We'll get these things out, and I will talk through a little bit of what Brian found during his repair process. Then we will get them popped back into the car. And then at the end of the video, we will kind of finish up with a cool, hopefully cool binaural sound check of our hopefully reinvigorated NSX car stereo. So if you're looking for a little bit of car ASMR, then stick around for that. I got some new microphone toys that I'm going to play with there a little bit. So find your headphones and stick around for that. But in the meantime, let's get these boxes opened up and see what we're working with. So let's start with the cluster. That is the larger box and more in the way. So we'll get right into that. Now, Brian sent me some pictures that he had taken while he was redoing this. And so just to kind of put some closure on a couple of items from last time as we're getting it out, the brown, I think I called it schmoo or goo or crusty stuff or something like that I saw on the back of the cluster that I sent. That, he said, was most likely flux. It was just flux left over from a rework during the manufacturing process. I thought that was pretty interesting. He also said, and from the pictures he sent, he said it wasn't that bad. There were a little bit of leakage, damage from leakage, but overall it was not in terrible shape. However, since there was some leakage, it was probably definitely worthwhile to do it when I did it rather than letting it get any worse. So I still feel good about my decision to go ahead and send it off to him and go and take the not too expensive. The cluster itself to have it all reworked was $300, which that sounds like a lot for electronics repair, but really it's not so much. I think I discussed this online a bunch because somebody was like, it's blah blah blah, it's the the NSX tax for everything, and I'm like, no, it's not really. It's a known quantity. Brian has fixed hundreds of these things. He knows exactly which parts to use, and he has a near perfect track record from my observation in the community. So although it was more expensive than maybe if I'd taken it down to Jim Bob's shady electronics shack down the street here, I think it's more the extra money that it might have cost me is certainly well worth the confidence I have that this is going to work when I put it back in. Setting aside the instrument cluster for a few minutes, let's look at what we're working with our speaker amps. Now, I've obviously already taken these out of the box. I pulled a professional YouTuber move and forgot to push the record button when I started doing that. So I'm thereby obligated to also take back all the stuff I've said about the guys that make millions of dollars unboxing Legos on the internet, having it easy. But professional challenges aside, let me show you why we have 5 amps here, even though I only mailed off 3 to be repaired. And that is because that 2 of the 3 that I mailed off to be repaired were in fact not actually NSX speaker amps. They were in an NSX and they were technically sort of working in an NSX, but they were not NSX parts. And thereby the parts to fix the parts are different than the parts needed to fix NSX speaker amps. So fortunately though, Brian was able to hook me up. He had a couple of cores that he had already repaired that where people had either gone a different direction and upgraded stereos, and nonetheless they weren't being used in a car. He had them on hand and was willing to sell them to me. So I now have a trio of honest to goodness NSX Bose amplifiers to put back in the car. Now, how do you tell? Because clearly it was in the car and it was working. I had no idea. And they even had the factory, I don't know what you call it, like probably heat sinks or an aluminum covers that are on them, actually have the correct part numbers on them. but the parts underneath did not. Now, how do you tell? Well, I've taken the liberty of popping one of these things back off of one of the real parts, and I will show you. Let me see if I can get the camera to refocus, please. Thank you. What you're looking for on these is this little sticker or printing over here that has a part number on it. I think 2205, 2305, and 2405, and the second 4 digits over here means it's an NSX part and you're good. If you do not see that, as with this, which is the one that I sent in, it doesn't even have the, nowhere over here is there a sticker like that. This is not an NSX sticker. It is, or an NSX amplifier. It has nowhere on it, does even have a, I don't know, there's no manufacturer stamping on this at all either, that you can tell either on the front or on the back for that matter. I don't see an obvious, maybe somebody that's more eagle-eyed or whatever can tell, but on the real part, if you look on the back, I'm trying to be very careful before I put this in, if you can see right up in here, if I get the light correct, you actually see it says Bose on it. So, just a couple of things to pay attention to if you have an NSX like mine that is long in the tooth and may have had stuff done to it previously. Before you send something off expecting to, as a core, potentially on a core exchange or something like that, probably good to know that ahead of time. So that's how you check to make sure that you have a legitimate NSX speaker amp. But now that we know that and we have 3 that we know are designed for the car, we should go and put those in. We'll start with a cluster and then we'll get to the speaker amps. So having now completed kind of a minimal installation, we have the speaker amps back in the boxes, reconnected to the speakers and reconnected to the wiring harness, both the door speakers and the floor speaker. So I thought before I button everything back up, putting the door cards back on, the carpet back in place and so on, that I should give it at least a quick sound check to make sure everything works before I continue the process. So I have hooked the battery back up and we will see what gives here. So, accessory, weird clicking noise, speaker popping,
hello darkness, my old friend.
You've got to be kidding me. All right, folks, well, it is another day. I kind of punted last night after that utter failure and went in to do some research, kind of dig around, but I didn't want to deal with the car anymore right then. This morning, however, I've gotten stuck back into it. I've checked gone through the troubleshooting process, first of all. I went through all of the fuses, relays, double-checked all the connections that I had made, even double check some connections that I'm pretty sure that I didn't touch, but wanted to make sure I didn't accidentally unplug something. So far, I got nothing. I've also been on the phone with Brian, not because I suspect that his work was in any question. He bench tests all the amps before he sends them back to you. So I'm near 100% confident that it's not the amps anymore, but I just wanted to talk to an expert and walk through the troubleshooting process as far as what I had done and what the likely suspects were, since he's dealt with a lot of this. And the consensus is that the head unit has probably decided to pack up, which is really unfortunate because that means this is more than likely going to get a lot more expensive, at least if I plan on doing it in a tasteful manner, we'll call it that way, my taste. So that's where we're at. I really am going to try and get the ball rolling on this because I'd like to have the car back up and running soon, as it seems that at least in parts of the country, some racetracks are starting to open up for limited events at this point, and I want to be able to take advantage of that. Even if that means, and I will still do that, even if it means that something's going to take a long enough turnaround time that I just need to, pull a fuse or pull a relay here and there and just completely disable the audio system to make sure that nothing's going to short while I'm driving the car in silence, or I'll put a Bluetooth speaker in the passenger seat or something like that. So researching options for dealing with a head unit. If you have any amazing options or great ideas that you've implemented, please leave them in the comments below, because I am definitely looking. The stuff that I've come across so far has involved either, let's see here, from probably cheapest to most expensive. I could abandon the head unit, basically just unplug everything from the back of the head unit, hide a second head unit somewhere else in the car, using the existing speaker, because I don't need an amp because the speakers are individually amplified. So the wiring and hookup should be fairly simple there. I could, the next one would just be to replace the stereo that's in the car with a modern head unit, single or double din head unit. The reason that gets expensive is because you then have to replace the center bezel to keep things clean looking. Now people do sell those. I think Science of Speed and Euroboutique and a few other people sell the center consoles with already with cutouts for single or double din stereos of various styles, which is great. They're not cheap, but they at least look good then. But you have that extra step if you decide to go that route, and then also making sure you have the appropriate harnesses to match everything up to not need an amp, a supplemental amp on top of, or well, you would need a supplemental amp, but to make sure it works with the Bose amps. The other option that I've seen is the Willmans Electronics retrofit, in which you send them your dead OEM head unit. They basically gut it and put in new modern internals. I think I've read they're currently Kenwood internals that keep it looking mostly original and functioning way better. You gain Bluetooth and some USB inputs and stuff like that doing it that way, which is great. The problem is it's expensive, so we'll see which direction I go. I am definitely in the camp of buy once, cry once. However, I also have to factor in that I do have a fixed car track budget still at this point. I am not a big enough YouTuber to just be like, all right, whatever, I'll make money off of the next video. So not there yet. Please subscribe. Maybe we'll get there. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now is I'm researching solutions for the head unit, which appears to be now the issue. Why that happened all of a sudden, I don't know. It was visually behaving correctly before I took things apart. It would, at least the display would come on, buttons would do things, the volume would change the volume of the pops and crackles coming from the speaker. So again, I don't have an actual known good test that I had done prior to taking things apart. My only speculation is that since it normally has a trickle of energy from the clock fuse circuit, if you're familiar with the NSX, I think most cars have that, where you've got one always hot to save the presets and stuff like that. That having that now cold for a while and the condition of the head unit having degraded to enough of a point that being cold for a couple of weeks while it's been apart for other, having the cluster and the speakers done. Not having the battery hooked up for that amount of time, everything kind of shrunk, cooled off and shrunk, and that finished it off. That's my best guess at the moment, just kind of knowing what I know about electronics in general, which is some but not a lot. So anyway, yeah, so that's where we're going to leave it. Let it never be said that I stage these videos to always look good or have a happy ending. That's not the reality, I think, as everybody knows, of having borderline now, I hate to call her vintage, but I think by definition that's the case now. Cars that you still want to horse around with, you just kind of have to deal with this type of thing, especially when you're looking at more proprietary parts and sort of one-off interiors. But that's where we're going to leave it. Thanks for watching. Sorry we didn't get to the sound check or anything like that. We will in the future at some point, I promise, but until that happens, I will see you guys in the next video, if not at the track.